the other thing that you bring to the world is that your journey is so powerful and you're going to help so many other people. So, I feel gratitude listening to you sharing the story and
well, I appreciate that. One of the key criticisms I get about my sharing my story is that I'm not a qualified expert, if you like, in the field, and that's true of anything. Like, I don't have a degree in anything. I've never been to university. I went to the school of hard knocks, as they say, at least as far as my health was concerned. But at the same time, I realize that there's a lot of skepticism in this, post-truth world and distrust of experts and authority and all that sort of thing. And my not being one of those people yet, at least, I have some ideas for the future. Perhaps, lends some substance to people who are distrusting of people with qualifications, as opposed to people like me who don't have qualifications, but they do have the experience. I've been there. I've lived that. And maybe, an anecdote from a real everyday Joe Average from the street. Some people might find it a little easier to resonate with and connect with, perhaps, than somebody in an ivory tower, somebody somewhere proclaiming that this is what we all need to be doing. And that's not to say that the standard advice is flat out wrong, or that calories don't count or anything like that. We need to be careful to recognize and celebrate the successes that a lot of people can and do have by following that standard advice. The challenge is just in, I think, getting some recognition of the fact that it doesn't work for everybody. It's not as simple as that for everybody. And we're in a position now, certainly as of 2020 at least, where 66% or thereabouts of New Zealand adults are overweight or obese. Roughly 2/3 of the adult population in this country. Back in 1993, that figure was 28%. So it's more than doubled in a very short space of time. Can it really be that so many of us over such a short period of time have spontaneously gotten so lazy or stupid with our lifestyle? And I can't hold to that.
No. And I think, taking your point about not being an accredited expert, you spent 30 years consulting accredited experts, and it's over that same period that we've had these food guidelines and this, high carb, low fat, eat all your grains and cereals, and the addition of vegetable oils, which is another really important contributor to our health problems. And our health problems have just paralleled, the increases just paralleled those changes.
Yeah, and that's kind of where the ending of the book goes. These 12 chapters altogether, and the first 8 or 9 is essentially my story. How I grew up and how I grew out, and then how I grew back in again over the course of my 43 or so years. And then the last 3 chapters, I sort of start to pivot towards, okay, well, that has been my experience. But, again, a reader might say, well, that's great for him, but how do I know how well that's going to work for me? And so that's when I start to pivot towards asking some wider questions. What evidence is there that supports this approach? Because a lot of people have claimed historically that there is none, for starters. And I'm thinking, well, I've been able to uncover enough studies along the course of my own journey to have been convinced that this was something worth pursuing. So, how do we explain that particular discrepancy when people say there is no evidence? What is their justification? Where are they coming from when they're saying that? And what my investigation sort of down that path seemed to arrive at was, it seems that people sort of pick and choose which sets of evidence to look at, if you like, in that there will be some documents that will say, oh, we there's no evidence for low carb, when in fact people like myself and you as well, I'm sure, know that evidence is out there. It just doesn't count for whatever sort of low key, obscure technical reason. And so, you know, that the conclusions that we see and hear in the media about there being no evidence, well, that's fine if you understand that, you know, the criteria used when you go looking about for this evidence just happens to be designed in such a way that a lot of the evidence in support of low carb just so happens to be excluded from consideration.